this, Charles?
I'm fine. Besides, we're out of time. Let's finish this.
Alright, let's go. We're rolling. When we left off last time, you had just been told you had lung cancer. Now, you sure you can do this?
Yeah. Alright. So, I went to the doctor. I was just expecting an antibiotic. Instead, he took an x-ray. He calls me 2 days later, and I go in to hear that I've got a few weeks to live. I remember him telling me about the diagnosis, but everything else is just noise and dizziness. I came home to find Martin staring out the window and up into the sky. Funny, I thought at the time, I saved this old man's life, and now I'm going to die. Martin then shocked me. He said, "Charles, I know what you're feeling. It has to be devastating. But you have much more to learn and to teach. Please come sit with me." I stumbled over and I sat down, and Martin said it was better for me to be sitting for this next part anyway. "Charles," he said, "why do you think I chose you?" I said, I asked him what the hell he was talking about. He said, "Charles, I knew you were dying the first time I saw you. There's an aura around the dying. I knew that I needed you and you needed me. And at this point, I'm thinking he's crazy. And I'm pissed that I'm going to die and there's this old man messing with my mind." I said, "Look, Martin, I don't know how you knew about my diagnosis, but I'd appreciate it if you'd let me deal with this without all this bullshit." And he asked, "Charles, please let me finish." He started to talk. He said, "Death is inevitable.
We all die. However, a moth lives a much shorter life than an elephant. Lifespans are determined by natural cycles. If a planet were to rotate around the sun every 3,600 Earth years instead of every year, then the inhabitants of that planet might seem like gods to the inhabitants of the Earth planet that rotated every year. Wouldn't you say? Now, with the extended lifespan and subsequent knowledge, don't you think cures for all human diseases are available? Charles, you're not going to die, but you have to help your fellow man to live, and unfortunately, we have very little time. Charles, it's time you know the truth. You cannot pronounce my name with your tongue and vocal cords, but my name isn't Martin or Hermes or Pierre or Juan or Liaf or Irgiton or any of the other names I've garnered for the last 450,000 years here on your planet. Martin is fine for now. It is unimportant. Do I have your attention, Charles? I am from the twin planets of Yitaga and Erfatu. When I was very young, we were taught that Erfatu was a prison planet. The fate of that planet had been decided many years before my birth. On the other hand, Yitaga, my home planet, consisted of free thinkers, creators, scientists, and explorers. My parents and their peers decided to travel to one of the nearest planets that could support carbon life. Your planet, Earth. And fortunately for me, I got to come along. We brought our knowledge with us. Our small party of explorers found Earth to be everything that we had hoped it would be. Because we appeared from the sky and possessed technology, the early inhabitants of your planet viewed us as if we were gods. We were merely servants. Although we possessed knowledge well beyond early man, we still behaved in many ways just like the animals we studied. There was bickering about this and that. Mainly, it was a struggle for control. At any rate, our main mission was gold extraction, and this proved to be very difficult and labor-intensive. One of our scientists spliced our DNA into the DNA of a human female and created the Adama. The Adama was able to toil in the mines, but was unable to reproduce. After many Earth years, the Adama was finally given the ability to reproduce so that the workers could be multiplied more easily. Yes, it is written in the Bible, but it was written down in ancient Sumer, and then orally repeated for about 35 generations before it was then written down in Hebrew. Anyway, continuing, our scientists eventually created kings out of a few of the Adamas to rule over the laborers, to control what was not only an ever-expanding source of workers, but a growing number of problems. When the early inhabitants of Earth hunted and gathered their food, their numbers reflected their ability to feed themselves. When food was grown to feed the expanding numbers, territorial disputes emerged, commerce developed, power over the food supply became power over everyone in the kingdom or region. The earliest governments were simply a ruling class of slave hunters and human farmers, where toil in the soil meant a tiny bit of food, or the nourishment of hops and beer at the end of the long day. Unfortunately for mankind, our meddling with your species created a race of domesticated farm animals. I could go on and tell you the rest of your true history as a species, but I'd rather tell you about the history of my species. My people, for lack of a better word, were created in the same way that your species was, through seeding and manipulation from another place. My people inhabit both of the twin planets of Yitaga and Erfatu. You would think that the development of these two worlds would be similar, and they were, but the makeup of them now could not be any more divergent. You will find many parallels between our history and your own. You must share this with your fellow man. There are choices to be made, and quickly.